Well, seated good morning is going to be a regression to a standing good morning. If we go back to that isolated before we integrate movements and stable before unstable, a seated good morning is a good GPP type of exercise, as it can be a main exercise or it can be a supplementary exercise, right? So if we have somebody sitting on a bench, now they don't have to manage their body in a 3D bilateral movement. They can do it on a seated stable position, and they can concentrate more on keeping the spine stable and moving and rotating that hip and going into that hinge motion. It tends to be, we tend to use it more as like a weighted mobility type movement as well. It's not something I'm gonna look to really load really heavy. What I'm more interested in is, can you do the range of motion that we're looking for and load it sufficiently enough? Because once we get into that motion where we're loading it sufficiently enough and we have longer range of motion, then we're gonna move into a standing good morning.
Now, something I find I notice with a lot of clients, especially when you're working with general population, they don't necessarily be able to, they struggle to get themselves in the right position to actually hold the bar and then be able to create enough movement. Now, I know we've talked about using a safety bar, but I think there's something that you shared the other day, which was adding a band.
Yeah, so what we find too is if someone has an issue getting the bar on their back and getting their hands in the right positioning, right? So you'll see a lot of people, they might have internally rotated shoulders, the shoulders may be forward, and they just simply can't get the bar on their back, right? Now, we can go to a wide hand spacing, but that's not really gonna solve a lot of things when we're thinking about this being a weighted mobility movement. So what we'll typically do is we'll start out with a band, and they'll do a band pull apart and go into a dislocate. Okay, and this is achieving a couple of things. A, it's causing a lot of tension in the upper back to pull this back, but it's also, as we go around, creating a lot of lengthening and strength in the anterior chain as well. So that might be a good solution for somebody who's having issues putting the bar on their back, or also somebody who has a problem with posterior chain flexibility and also shoulder flexion as well. So we would do band pull apart, and then we might move into a dowel rod overhead and a snatch grip. And then we can load that by sliding a plate into the middle of the dowel rod. And then once they've achieved that, they usually won't have any issue putting the bar on their back, and then we can continue on.
Now, obviously we've got different positions, and I'm interested to hear what your take is on this, but my understanding is that obviously if we regress to the base level seated good morning, let's say we can get a bar on the back, having bent knee is going to be a hell of a lot easier. Then we can start to straighten the legs out. Then we can obviously alter the position of the ankle as well to create more tension through the calves, more tension through the hamstrings. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're using it more for power movement, I think that bending the knees is probably a better position because you're going to be able to use a lot more weight. And if you don't need excessive range of motion, then you don't really need to straighten the legs. But everybody's goal is different. Some people don't care about getting really strong. Some people want to be more supple. Maybe they want to train into doing the splits. I think that doing a straight leg and even putting the legs on blocks might be a better position for them to do that weighted mobility in a position that they're going to need to get into the split.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
See you. Good morning.